everybody, and welcome to another edition of Beebe Book Buzz. We are very glad to see you here today. And before we start, I have a little announcement to make. It's kind of a sad announcement in that this is Jeff's very last official book buzz as an employee of the library anyway. I mean, we do expect guest appearances.
I will certainly do cameos.
Yes,
Yeah,
we've
made Leanne do it. So.
Yeah.
So Jeff is retiring after 26 years as head of the reference department, and he is a founding member of the Book Buzz team, and we will miss you, Jeff. You're always insightful and fun commentary, especially on books with a great sense of place and books about travel and travelers and all those Booker Prize finalists. I don't know what we'll do without you. We'll try.
Well, you'll have to get me books when I come in constantly to the reference desk and ask you to get them for me. I'll have even more time to read.
You will. You will. I know. That's lucky you.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to give Jeff pole position here today since he is leaving us. So go for it.
Okay. I'm going to start by talking about the book of the month. It's the one everyone's talking about. It's on the bestseller list. It's Anthony Dorr's new book called Cloud Cuckoo Land. You remember him, of course, from, I think it was 2014, when he wrote and won the Pulitzer for All the Light We Cannot See, which was a huge bestseller. I don't know anyone who hasn't read it at this point. So this has been, Jackie, come on.
It just never happened.
Even I read it.
I think you would like it, Jackie, but anyway.
I would.
Yeah.
I know I would.
I really
I'll
enjoyed it. So I should say, though, that this is actually quite different. So if you loved All the Light We Cannot See and have been anxiously awaiting his next book, this is great, but it is very different. So I'll talk about that. It's one of the first things about it that's very different is that it's really long. It's 620 pages, but I should point out that it actually is not as long as it looks because it's cut up into lots of little chapters. Can't really see. So there's actually a lot of blank pages. And as Dorr himself points out, in terms of actual word length, it's about the same length as the other book. So even though this looks intimidating, it isn't actually as long as it looks, and it's quite a fast read because of all the small sections that are that he bounces around in. It's been compared frequently to David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas, although I would say it's not as self-consciously literary as that is. I think it's a bit of an easier read. The title refers to, and this was perfect for me, the title refers to an ancient Greek comedy by Aristophanes called The Birds. And the plot of that story, the 60-second story of that, is that there are two guys from Athens who are sick of the corruption of the city, and they leave and try to convince all of the birds to create their own society that's going to be perfect up in the clouds. And it will be in between the gods and the humans down on Earth, and everything will be wonderful. And so it's a comic play. And in the end, the guys succeed. The birds create this society, and they decide that one of the guys is going to be king of Cloud Cuckoo Land. And of course, what he discovers, and kind of the ironic end of the play, is he's now king of this society that really he has all the same problems that in running a society that he was complaining about back down on Earth. So that's sort of where the reference to the title comes from. But the novel itself is 5 separate stories, almost 5 separate novels, but they're intertwined with each other. And they're linked by yet a 6th story, which is a completely made-up document. It's invented by Anthony Dorr himself. It's his own invention by a writer he calls Antonius Diogenes, who is a fictional early, 1st century Roman writer who writes a comic novel based on Aristophanes' play. Have I lost you yet?
A little bit, but we're hanging up.
It's okay.
So this fictionalized story is broken into 24 different sections corresponding to the 24 letters of the Greek alphabet. And it's sprinkled throughout the novel. And intertwined with all of this are these 5 other stories, or 5 characters, I should say. 2 of them, there's a young woman and a young man who are in about the 1450s, right about the time that the Ottoman Empire sacks and conquers the city of Constantinople. Then there are 2 other characters who are in Idaho, and they are like in the second half of the 20th century up to the present day. Idaho, incidentally, is where Dorr lives with his family, so there's a connection there. And then the 5th character is in the future, about 100, 150 years in the future, in a spaceship that has left Earth and is colonizing a habitable planet that is so far away that it's going to take 600 years to get there. So this girl is one of a group of colonizers who know that they're not actually going to ever get there. They'll die long before they get to this planet, but their descendants rather, will colonize this planet. So if this sounds crazy, it does. It does.
Yeah.
But what ties them together is this story, this lost document that was written by Diogenes, and the various characters that I just described. That story links them all together in ways that I couldn't possibly explain in a short time, but they make sense in the story. And the whole point of the novel, I think Dorr would agree with me, is it's about stories. It actually is a love story to libraries and librarians. There actually are a number of very important library and librarian characters that are crucial to the plot. And he's very open about how he considers them so important. And it's about how stories get lost over time, how so many stories throughout history have disappeared. Old documents that disintegrate and are lost in war or mold or what have you, and how we keep stories alive through the cultures that tie us together. So I found it actually quite moving. I wouldn't say it's, like I said, it's not as literary as something like Cloud Atlas, but it's beautifully written. And it is all about books. If you love books, if you love stories and storytelling, it's about how important stories are to us in life, and certainly as librarians, how we appreciate that. And it's also about connections, the connections that in the book, they link all the characters together and link this story through time. But also it's about the connections between people, between cultures, and between the past and the present and what our future might turn out to be. I think if I were to try to come up with some read-alikes for it, I would certainly say Cloud Atlas definitely is one of them, if only because of all the bouncing around from different time periods and points of view, but also things like People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks would be a good example. Shadow of the Wind, that whole series by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Even The 17th Tale by Diane Setterfield. The Starless Sea, actually, by
13th Tale. The 13th.
Sorry, 13th Tale.
I was just, I was like, was
17,
it 17?
14, whatever number of tales it was. Yes, 13. And I really had a lot of it. I read The Starless Sea just about a year ago, and I felt a lot of similarities in that as well. And also Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. If you love like really intense stories about books and storytelling, writing, it's great. And
It sounds very meta.
it is
Isn't it
very
like
meta. It is very, very meta.
I mean, what a construct. Like, how do you even come up with a construct
Yes.
like that?
I think it's probably not as intense as I might have made it sound. It flows much better than you would think it might. But I would have to say that if you are someone who really needs your plot to be very linear, this might not be the book for you, because
Right.
and in that respect, it is quite different from All the Light We Cannot See.
Right.
This is constantly bouncing from one time frame and one character to another. I loved it, and I can see why it's the big thing of the fall.
Well, it's definitely on the list as well for me. Jackie. Jackie's not so sure, but
Read the
It
other
does
one
sound
first.
good.
Yeah.
You might have lost
I
me
would
with the the planet far away.
Well, actually, I should point out though that even with the spaceship thing, if that makes you nervous because of sci-fi stuff, it absolutely is not. This is not a sci-fi novel, and that particular aspect of the plot is definitely not something that should turn off someone who
Okay,
doesn't like
I'll keep
sci-fi.
it on the list.
yeah, but do read the other one first. I think you.
I will. I'll get there.
Okay. All right. Jackie gets to go next.
Oh, okay. So I read actually in the summer, and I've been waiting to talk about it. Early Morning Riser by Katherine Heine. And I had talked a couple of years ago when it came out, her other novel, Standard Deviation. I think she actually has a third I haven't read. It was earlier, but Standard Deviation was her last one, and I loved it. And I think I liked this one even better. And it's the same, not that I expect you to remember what I just said about that one, but the crux of it was that it wasn't really about anything. There was no like overarching plot. It was kind of this sort of snapshot of these people's lives. And this one is similar in that it's not about anything. There's no like arc to it. It just flows. That one took place over Standard Deviation, I think took place over like a couple of months or something. This actually takes place over 17 years, but it's sort of episodic. So, it's broken up by year. So it's like 2005, 2008.
17 years or 13 years?
17. 17. So it opens with, you meet the main character, the protagonist, Jane, and everything is told from her perspective, but it's third person. And Jane is 26. She has just moved to Boynton City, Michigan from like Grand Rapids or somewhere. And she's going to teach second grade at the elementary school. And it's a smallish town. And she immediately gets locked out and calls a locksmith, and he comes to help her. And he looks like the brawny paper towel man and doesn't leave for 3 days. And his name is Duncan. And so begins kind of the relationship of Jane and Duncan. And it's a really great relationship because it's good. And even when it's not good, it's good. But the problem with Duncan is that he has slept with everyone, like literally everyone in the town, in the county, like in the like within like a 5-town radius, like, and so Jane.
He's the quicker picker upper.
Yeah. So,
Jeff.
Sorry.
Well, so Jane is kind of trying to navigate this, like the idea that while they're together, she's still sort of sharing him because and he seems to have wonderful relationships with everyone, which is the kind of other funny part. Like he doesn't try and hide it. No one backs away from it. He's like, hello, like, how are the kids? Like, it's just to like his past girlfriend. So there's that. And so, and there's, parts when they're not together. But it's really a character study. And this is what this was why Standard Deviation is good. It's just about the characters, and they are amazing. I was reading this on vacation and kept laughing out loud, and people were like, what what are you reading? And it's really just the people. Jane is great. She's quirky, but not like overly so, and kind of becomes less so as the book goes on, as life progresses, and she has to kind of become the wife and the mother, and that's and her still be a second grade teacher. Sort of, it seems like some of the quirkiness sort of drains out of her. But the other people, right? But the other people are amazing. Her mother is just phenomenal and just says everything that she's thinking all the time, without any filter at all. They they're kind of, Jane and Duncan's closest friends are actually Aggie, who is Duncan's ex-wife, and her new husband, not new anymore. At this point, they've been divorced for a number of years. But her new husband, Gary, who is just like priceless. I mean, they'll say things like, well, you know, Gary doesn't like countertops, or like Gary, oh no, Gary can't eat oats. Like he's really specific and has all these like quirky like likes and dislikes that no one ever explains. They're just sort of, Gary can't do shag carpet. Like there's no there's no explanation. There's like everybody's just like, well, okay, that's Gary. And Aggie, the ex-wife, is very like, she's very voluptuous. She's very earth mother. She's always making Jane kind of feel sort of less than. She's always like, there, Jane, like I'll do the cooking. Like, don't worry about it. Like, but they, you know, there's just this arc and they, of their lives, all these people's lives together. And there is an incident that sort of changes the dynamic of things. So it's kind of going in one direction, and then this event happens, and it really changes the direction of all of the characters in the book. And I won't give that away because it's the way it unfolds is you think you know where it's going, and then it's not. But it really changes the direction of their lives. And this is sort of, so the kind of the first half of the book is the way things were going and the relationships where they were in. And then this event happens, and the second half of the book is sort of the fallout from that and how that changed the scope of their lives. But I think some of the best scenes in the book are the ones that are kind of messy, that are really real. There were a lot of scenes where with her, she eventually has children, and it really resonated with me. She's talking about like wrestling the kid out of the car in the winter and trying to get like a coat on her to put her in the, you know, to get her into preschool on time. And like, just all of these things really spoke to me. Yeah. But even the children are really well drawn. They're so realistic and like themselves in the way that kids are. And I think until you have kids, sometimes you don't always recognize like how children are who they are from like the moment they're born. And she really writes them that way. Like, it's like Patrice was difficult from the moment she opened her eyes. Like, and it's like, yes, I know those children. But it's just it's funny and it's poignant and it's about relationships, and the tone is there are, you know, things that are not happy and wonderful, but there's always this kind of like hope, and it's like, we're going to just keep going on, and we're surrounded by these people that we've made our family. And it's a lot about that too, this sort of idea that you make your family what it is, and it's more than the people you are, you know, you came from. It's who you decide as your family. She's a really wonderful writer for character. And setting too. I mean, it's in Michigan, and they kind of keep talking about it being in Michigan. It feels like Michigan. Feels like a small town.
Is it feels like a lighter Sally Rooney or something like that, or I don't know. Is it like
it's definitely lighter than Sally Rooney.
Well, yeah, it would have to.
It's kind of,
most things are.
Her books are not, I would say, and I love her books, but they're not like funny, really.
No.
And
no, but I think it's more those kind of those at least from, you know, what I
yes
in the ordinary people, you know, it's the relationships, that's really real relationships that drive the narrative.
And it's also in the sense that it's not about anything. It's this sort of like
it's
period of
just
time,
like these snapshots through time.
Yes. So I mean, I think if you like Sally Rooney, you would like this. Like,
especially if you feel like laughing instead of crying.
Yes, this wouldn't bring you to tears, I don't think. There are a couple times when it's emotional, but it's the tone is still, there's always this little undercurrent of humor running through it. And,
no, that sounds good. I definitely want to put that one on the list too.
It's really wonderful. I highly recommend it.
And it's not really long either.
No, it's just a normal. It's
just sort of normal length. Yeah.
Yep. So that was Early Morning Riser, Katherine Heine.
Yeah. So I have one which also is very much based on relationships, although it has a different feel to it, I think, than yours. The book I want to talk to you about today is The Arsonist City by Hala Alian. And I'm just going to start by reading the first paragraph, which is short, but really like drew me into the book. The title of the chapter is called The Wrong Ghosts. And it starts, "Tonight the man will die. In some ways, the city already seems resigned to it. The Beirut dusk, uncharacteristically flat, cloudy, a peculiar staleness rippling through the trees like wind. It's easy to costume the earth for grief, and tonight the birds perched upon the tangled electricity wires look like mourners in their black and white feathers, staring down at the concrete refugee camps without song." So, I mean, first of all, I want to say that sounds a little mournful, but it is, the whole book is not like that. The tone of it is, well, it varies, but it isn't a sad book. But that paragraph kind of raises all these questions about, why is he going to die? And that and the beauty of the language just kind of pulled me right into the book. And I wanted to know, you actually do find out very soon why he's dying. So that chapter is kind of a prologue to the rest of the story before we meet the main actors of the story. And the real mystery of the story is nothing to do with why he dies, but it do relate to the repercussions that his death has as it ripples through the two generations of the family that's at the center of the book. Because basically at its heart, Arsonist City is a good old-fashioned like family saga. You could quibble with that because it only really covers deeply like two generations, but I'm kind of going to stick with the description because that's just what it feels like. It's one of those books that has that kind of sprawl to it. And it's everything you want in one of those stories. It's got a family of great, fully realized, believable characters who make you laugh and cry, and these relationships and conversations feels like those that you might be having at your house. There is love and hate and fights and very literally sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The settings, which are Damascus and Beirut and Southern California, are beautifully drawn. It's like clear that the author knows these places well and loves them. The story has family secrets, lots of them, and these are always being hidden and revealed in a way that really pulls you through in a very kind of satisfying, the ending is very satisfying, almost maybe too satisfying, I would say. But but these things are all kind of, most things are revealed in the end in one way or another. And above all, like the other book, like Jackie's book, this is for people who read for character and relationship. And I just want to give you a little feeling of the characters. There's Muzna, the mother of the family, who we meet when she's a very young woman, gorgeous, voluptuous, impulsive, looking for adventure, dreaming of being a Hollywood actress. And then there's Idris, who is the man, like many men, who adores her and does eventually become her husband. And their children are the other central characters of the book. Ava, Mimi. Mimi is actually short for Marwan, so it's a boy in the middle. And then the youngest, Najla or Naj. So Ava is this kind of serious eldest daughter. She's a biologist. She's married to Nate with a couple of children. Mimi is this always aspiring a musician and a restaurateur, and he's constantly fighting with his sense of inadequacy at not being the natural talent that his rock star younger sister Naj is. And then there's Naj, who is actually a rock star. She's beautiful and she's gifted, and she draws these huge crowds to her concerts, like all across Europe and the Middle East. And she seems to live this life of freedom and fame, but she has deep secrets of her own, as they all do. The cast is even bigger than that, which again is what makes it feel like this kind of saga, with each of these characters having kind of their own friends and lovers and attached to them. And even Muzna and Idris's parents and siblings come into the book, so giving that third generation a little bit of play. Place, as I kind of mentioned before, is very important. The contrasts and the distinctions between the places of the book. We live with this family from the time that Muzna and Idris are young, and she grows up in Damascus, he grows up in Beirut, and of course those cities are very close together. Beirut at the time is in the middle of a war. This is '60s, late '60s, and she tells. They also go to California, I should say, and then they go back again to Beirut at the end of the story, where a lot of the kind of the action wraps up. But the sense of place you get is very important. The longing for home. I mean, it is essentially an immigration story, although that's not her main point here. It's more about home and what being away from that means, and what it means when your home is war torn, as both Beirut and Damascus are at different times in the book. You know, this weird, she's really good at showing you this kind of weird, both the horror and this weird normalcy of being at war, having a city at war. You know, these pictures of Beirut where there's like a bomb dropping across the city, but they're at the beach when they hear about it. You know, it's like, she's really good at that. She does place very, very well. And beyond that, there's themes of secrets and the secrets that we keep, and how easy those secrets can be for those secrets to make us feel like strangers to the people that we know best or think we know best. It's about dreams realized and dreams thwarted. And pretty much above all, it's about family ties and the things that stretch and pull and break and repair those ties in every family. That's what she just does so well. It's a book that you really live in, you know, one of those books that when you're in it, it envelops you, and you know the characters, and you're standing right there as they're having the conversations with each other and the arguments and everything. She does that really, really well. So I highly recommend the Arsonist City.
It's contemporary, right? You might have said it's
Yep.
now.
Well, it starts, this is why it's kind of saga-like. I mean, it starts, there are in the late '60s, that's the parents' generation. And then the children's, it's kind of up to the '80s. It's actually '90s, but yeah, it comes up to the present, because the Syrian war is, you know, the present Syrian war is part of the plot. I mean, it's kind of more background, but it's there. Yeah. So it covers that kind of time span. She does it by moving back and forth though, and not in a way, she does that really well. It doesn't feel jerky. You'll have a character remembering something that brings the past into the present. If that's relevant, she'll do it that way. But then she also like, you know, there's a whole chapter told by one character in a particular time, but you're never confused. There's nothing, it is not linear, but there's nothing confusing about the way she does it. She weaves the story very well.
And is it from different chapters, like from different perspectives, or
Yes.
is it okay
Yeah.
in their voice, or is it all third person still?
It's like omniscient narrator. Yeah, it's third person, but you're getting it from their point of view, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely recommend it. She also wrote I think it's Salt Houses that she wrote, was her one before this, which has also gotten quite a lot of press, but I think she's unsung. Like, she should be more recognized than she is. She's a very good writer. And especially, I don't know, I don't know about you, but I haven't read like a good family saga in a while. It's like,
Yeah.
I forgot how much I enjoy them. So. And I think that's all we have for today. And so thank you very much. Signing off for Book Buzz, and also for Jeff.
Fare thee well, Jeffrey.
I'll see you all soon.
And we will expect lots of fabulous pictures from Greece.
Yes.
Maybe we can put them all up as our backgrounds. All right, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time on Book Buzz.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.